About 1,000 years ago, in the northwest corner of what now is New Mexico, a culture rose from the depths of the past. To the Navajos, they were called the Anasazi, or ancient enemies. The Hopi people considered them to be their ancestors. We now call them Ancestral Pueblo. We really don't know what they called themselves. Early Spanish explorers found a river they named Chaco. It flowed through a canyon that was the center of these people's culture. We now call them the Chaco Culture. Where did these people come from? Well, if we ignore their creation myths, many millennia ago, travelers left their home in Siberia, crossing the land bridge that connected Siberia to Alaska. They then made their way south, either along the coast or through an ice-free passage in Canada. Once they arrived south of the ice sheet, they spread throughout the remainder of North America. After centuries of wandering the wide open plains, mountains, valleys, and deserts of North America, they began to settle, first building pit houses dug into the earth. Slowly, they began to coalesce in small family units, then into clans and villages. From these villages came the wonders of Chaco Canyon. What became of the Chaco culture? The modern day Hopi claim that the remnants of Chaco migrated both west to the mesas of Hopi, south to Acoma and Zuni, and east to the pueblos along the Rio Grande. The Navajos say they became part of their great nation. Most archaeologists side with the Hopi and other Pueblo people. Some do not. Let's begin our exploration of the Chaco culture in the Chaco Canyon National Historic Park, run by the Park Service. We'll enter from the south off of I-40, driving 30 miles, many of it over gravel, rough roads. Your first stop in your travels through Chaco Canyon Cultural Historic Park should be the Visitor Center. Here, you can pay your fees, gather information about the various sites. There are several displays, a bookstore, and ranger-led programs from this site. There are also 24-hour bathrooms and, most importantly, in the dry Southwest, water. The first site we will visit is Una Vida. It is visible from the road shortly after leaving the visitor center. However, the trail to the site starts in the visitor center. Because it is unexcavated, imagining what Una Vida looked like at its peak is hard to do. The large flat area between the bulk of the ruins and the road is the plaza for this site. Back on the loop road after leaving Unavita. Our next site is Hungo Pavi. The large masonry structures throughout the Chaco Culture area of influence are known as great houses. Hungo Pavi is an example of an unexcavated great house, much like Una Vida. After leaving Hungo Pavi and heading down the loop road, we'll shortly come to a parking lot for the largest and best known site, Pueblo Benito. In fact, Pueblo Benito is probably the largest masonry structure built by pre Columbian people north of the Rio Grande. Also at this site is the Chaco Kettle Great House. One of the defining features of Chaco great houses are great kivas. That's what we call them now, although we don't know if they are actually the same as modern Hopi kivas. They are large, circular, subterranean ceremonial rooms. There are many smaller kivas in a lot of the sites in Chaco Canyon. We now walk the trail from Chaco Kettle to the most famous pueblo of all, Pueblo Benito. Many of the features of Chaco great houses and other structures have astronomical significance. This video was shot at sunset on the day near the summer solstice. One of the quarter windows projects light as a sun dagger onto a wall. The location of that sun dagger will indicate the exact moment of solstice. This is the West Plaza of Pueblo Benito. The plaza is divided in half by a north-south wall. This is one of the many, many round ceremonial rooms in Pueblo Benito and other great houses. They are thought to have the same purpose as the modern-day Hopi kivas. For that reason, they are popularly called kivas, even if we're not sure they are the same as the modern kiva. We're now leaving the parking lot for Chaco Kettle and Pueblo Benito, heading down the loop road to Pueblo del Arroyo. This site is alongside the Chaco Wash, and some of it has been destroyed by erosion. Most of what is found along the Loop Road in Chaco Canyon is called by many downtown Chaco to differentiate it from the many outliers and other sites. I find Pueblo del Arroyo to be the most interesting and in some ways scenic masonry building or site in the entire downtown Chaco. While Pueblo Bonito gets all the press, I think that Pueblo del Arroyo deserves more. After leaving the parking lot for Pueblo del Arroyo, we'll follow the loop road around to the last major site in downtown Chaco, Casa Rinconda. Even though we call the large structures in Chaco great houses, and casa is the Spanish word for house, Casa Rinconda is not a great house, but a great kiva, one of the large circular ceremonial structures. Casa Rinconda sits on top of a small, natural hill overlooking Chaco Canyon. Based on discussions with modern Pueblo people, we think we understand what a kiva was used for and what the various structures inside were. However, we don't know for certain. While the great houses of downtown Chaco and the other assorted structures in Chaco Canyon National Historic Park are awesome and worth a visit, I feel some of the best sites are what are known as outliers, Chaco great houses away from the canyon. About 10 miles from the visitor center in the remote southeast corner of the park is one of my favorite outliers, Kincleetson. To get to this site, you're going to drive out the south entrance onto the gravel road. After a little bit, you're going to make a hard right. Continue down this road for a little longer until the road makes a hard left. At this point, the trail to Kincleetson will be on your right. While the road to Kincleetson is more of a track or a trail, I have seen normal sedans make the trip successfully. You'll be driving through short grass prairie and sand, but it's not that difficult. This is a lonely road out through some very desolate country. And while I've never had a problem with it, all bets are off after one of the infrequent rains that come through here, turning it into a probably impassable mud hole. While you may encounter several side roads, don't turn off this road until you get to the sign that will direct you towards Kincleetson. It will be to the left. Straight ahead, somehow, some way, gets out to the major highway in the area and down to Crown Point. Shortly after turning on this road, on your right will be a fence that marks the edge of the national park. That is private property on the other side of that fence, and you should not go there. And there really is very little to see there. Continue down this road till you get to the parking lot for Kincleetson. The ruins sit on top of a small rise that dominate the entire area and are visible from a ways away. This was not ever meant to be a discussion of the archaeology involved with Chaco, so I won't go into the details about this building. One of the great things about wandering through some of these less visited sites is finding what are known as pottery shards, pieces of pottery. My next favorite outlier is called the Dittert site. It's located south of I-40. It's really cool in that not so much the road to it, but the hike of about 2 miles across a vast prairie, up and down through an arroyo, through some woods to a pile of stones that is the ruins of Dittert site. This is very much an unexcavated site and doesn't offer a lot other than to see how the Chaco people lived as part of the landscape. The last site I want to take us to is Casmero Pueblo, on BLM land just north of I-40 near Pruitt, New Mexico. It's adjacent to a large power plant. There's a small parking spot right along the county road, and you walk across towards the face of this cliff, and there you will see Casmero Pueblo. While it is known as a great house, it isn't as large as what you saw previously in downtown Chaco. Now that we've seen some of the places you may want to visit, it's time to talk about the practical matters. How to get there. First off, Chaco Canyon National Historic Park is in New Mexico, southwest United States. It's in the northwest corner of the state. It's about 40 miles north of Interstate 40, which brings you in the south entrance. It is also about the same distance south into the north entrance from US Highway 550 out of Albuquerque. Used to be known as 666 or the Devil's Highway. Like many national parks, Chaco Canyon does have a campground, Gallo Campground. However, it is rather small and does fill up, especially on summer weekends. There are a few overflow private sites nearby. However, the nearest public campground is probably an hour away. That campground is Angel Scenic Peak Campground on BLM land about an hour north of Chaco. Another campground also on BLM land is the Joe Skeen Campground south of I-40. Travel in this part of the country can have its challenges. For one, there is very limited cell phone coverage in the area. And after one of the infrequent rainstorms, the roads turn into muddy quagmires. And remember, it's very desolate out here.